The development of an entrepreneurial spirit is certainly a challenge, but in my belief, it's absolutely fundamental, particularly where the Irish economy is at the moment, because the only way we're going to get out of it, first of all, we've got to do it ourselves. Secondly, we've got to be creative, we've got to be innovative, and we cannot be dependent, quite frankly, on foreign direct investment as we had to in the past. So it has to come from us. If it's coming from us, we've got to learn it. So it comes from our educational institutions. Number one, being entrepreneurial themselves. So thinking outside the box, saying, how can we do things differently? How can we be creative? How can we challenge the status quo in what we teach and how we teach it? So it's let's call it an inward audit by the educational institutions on themselves, first of all, and saying, do we provide a service for a society that no longer exists? Are we teaching students curriculum that's actually more or less semi-relevant or irrelevant to them in the current climate and going forward? That's number one. That actually will create an entrepreneurial culture in the students, because when they see the college doing this, they'll say, wow, this is interesting. These guys are trying something new and innovative. Probably the last big innovative movement has been NIHE in Limerick, and that's probably over 20 years ago, where they started looking at the whole, pushing out the barriers in relation to college and teaching and learning. Right now we've got to do it again. And why not here, being at the forefront of that, in Ireland in particular. So what needs to be done is actually looking at the market, looking at doing what's being taught at the moment and how that needs to change to reflect what the market requirements are. Secondly, an entrepreneurial, focus needs to be developed, particularly in business, in my view. And that's actually teaching students how to learn rather than teaching students what to learn. So it's a totally different mindset from a college, a teaching, and also from a learning perspective. The third area is teaching students basically thinking skills, teaching students negotiation skills, which is something that's very, very important, teaching students skills that are relevant in today's world, rather than teaching students purely management. Like, for example, this is accounting, this is how you do accounting, this is economics, whatever. You actually need to teach them how to use the tools, rather than saying, these are the tools you use. So it's a combination of both. Yeah, well, when I was a young lad coming from Connemara, going to college in Galway, it was very, very different, and I found it personally very, very challenging, because I didn't know what to expect. And quite frankly, I felt, being straight about it, inadequate and out of my depth. But after a while, I used to play a lot of sport, hurling, football and rugby. And through that, I got to meet people and I said, wow, they're the same as me. And actually, I actually got to meet people who were real winners in different sports. I'd see them on TV. I'd see them wearing their county jerseys, be it Mayo or Galway or Donegal or Sligo or Clare or Tipperary. So, geez, these are ordinary guys, but they're achieving a huge amount. They're hugely successful. And I would then start internalizing that and setting that as a benchmark and a reference point. So they would be my idol or my objective, and say, if they're doing it, I can actually start going in that direction. So in actual fact, my peers in the student world that I kind of started learning and saying, they're achieving it, maybe I can go a little bit in that direction as well. And that was really, really helpful. And also, there was no barriers then in relation to, you became a friend with somebody or people, and that's it. There was no inhibition, no barriers, nothing like this is my turf, this is your turf or whatever. So there was a full-on 24/7 engagement with fellow students. And in that space, relationships became very, very important, and friendships. And those friendships even last right through to today. So I learned what friendship means, the depth of friendship, support. I suppose equality in that I was the same as everybody else. And actually I had this monkey on my shoulder, like I was in some way inferior. And that helped shift that. And that then gave me the confidence to go ahead and to try other things, like, for example, work with KPMG, accountancy firm, and move on from there, and eventually go into, I suppose, a space of entrepreneurship and developing companies like Airarn and others. So, but that's where it started, and that was a very strong grounding for me.